Drexel since last we spoke.
They're good. And they lost.
How good are they?
They lost a player, which doesn't help them, and it'll hurt them a little, but not a whole lot. They lost Lee, who was one of their better players, but they've learned to play without him already. So they played a couple of games without him, and they're just so experienced. That's the best word I want to use for it. They're experienced. They're athletic. They got size, and they're battle tested. This is their home opener. It seems like we're going into many home openers this year, and it's going to be a pretty feisty game in my estimation.
How is that team compared to the one that came in here for the bracket plus?
Oh, they were better. They're better than that team.
They're better than that team.
Yeah,
Okay.
that team in the bracket buster was good because they were on a run. They were playing well, but this team has got the experience now. That team had some youth. For instance, the five-man that started for him is now a senior this year.
Okay.
The point guard that started for him who was a sophomore that year. No, we both were sophomores. Our seniors this year. The kid that got hurt was a freshman, and he was really good, but he's gone now. The guard was a sophomore that year. Their leading scorer. Who else they got? The four-man is just a sophomore. He's got a lot of ability out of New Jersey. And then the only thing that they're probably lacking a little is that their bench, because when they lost this kid, it hurt. They had to bring a kid that was actually averaging 11 points a game off their bench as a starter.
You always set up. Is it 5 keys or is there fewer than that for your games?
Say it again.
What are your keys for this game?
Yeah, 5 keys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to defend. We got to defend that. They run this curl action, and they want to get close to the basket. They don't turn it over a lot. They only average 9 points up turnovers. So they remind me of. I tell you who they remind me of. They remind me a lot of Temple when John Chaney coached. Okay, and they want to get close to the basket, and they're really rugged and strong. So they want to get you there. You got to rebound the basketball because that's one of their strengths. Because they attack the offensive glass. So even if we play zone, we got to keep them off the glass. They got 2 main shooters. We got to zero in on, and that's Massonet, who's the point guard, number 4, and the 2 guard, who's averaging about 20 a game. So they got 2 pretty good scorers out there. They really play their roles on this team. That's what I seen when I watched them. The guys that rebound, the guys that shoot, the guys that defend.
You've obviously been on the road quite a bit this year. Does that help the experience going into? Oh,
yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I don't think our guys will fear going into there if they hadn't have been on the road. If they hadn't have been on the road, they would have. This would be tough for them. In going in there, fearing, not fear. I don't want to use the word fear. Going in there, being concerned about being at that place. I don't think. See, we done went to 2 places where we were their home opener. One was their homecoming, so they had filled a house both places. And then we went to Kentucky, which is not an easy place to play. And then you went to Eastern Michigan, where the odds were bad. So.
The odds were bad. Where'd you go, Vegas?
Well, they were. They were bad because we had just come off. We were coming from one part of the, time zone to the other. Each game was like that, so it was rough. I mean, and when I look back at that game, it was only one thing we didn't do well in that game at Eastern Michigan. We literally, we didn't defend as well as I wanted to, but we didn't shoot the ball well there at Eastern Michigan. Even though we led at halftime, we didn't shoot the ball well. I mean, I think we were something for 27 from the 3 or 4 from
5 of 27.
Yeah, the 3-point line. And when I go back and I think about it, because I didn't think about it at the time, when I go back and I evaluate everything, I think that's because the guy's legs were tired. I mean, they had just played. They played 3 games in 6 days. I didn't put that into the equation because we are a pretty good shooting team. So I thought we'd just shoot and shoot. It wouldn't matter. But when I go back and think about it, because we shot the heck out of it at Texas. Yeah, we shot it well, and then you come back a day later or 2 days later, traveling back across there again. It must have something to do with it.
Any update on Charlie's health status?
He will not be able to play this game. He's still, nursing, if you want to call the injury, trying to get it back. It's not season ending, which I like, and we just got to get the strength back in it for him.
Now Drexel's beaten some pretty good teams, and they've come close to Arizona. Does that give a good wake-up call to?
Not only Arizona, they led the game at UCLA, and UCLA beat them by 5. This team is used to playing people now.
And does your team understand that? Like, Drexel doesn't, the name doesn't really, come out at you, but the teams that they've played so hard.
Yeah. Our guys realize this is a pretty good team because of the ones that were here when they came in here and beat us pretty bad in here. And so they remember that. And we got about 6 of those guys back. Charlie's not playing, so he does, but Anton, Sebastian, even though Sebastian didn't play in that game, he was hurt. That was after he had the injury. So Sebastian, Marlon was in that game. Who else? Anybody? Devin was in that game. Luda, but he's hurt again. And
How's he doing? Is there any update on Luda?
Well, he had the operation, and it was a successful operation, and we expect it to be about 2 to 3 months before he's able to come back, if he comes back.
So that would be early February if everything went well?
Yeah.
What was the operation?
On his shoulder, and he tore some ligaments there. The only thing I didn't like what I heard about it was normally they only pin up maybe about 2 areas, and pin up 6 for him. So
How did he do that?
Oh, he was in the game. I don't know. It was in the scrimmage at Central Michigan. He went for a loose ball, and the guy fell down on it. So you can't hide him anywhere. Can't hide him in practice. Can't hide him in the games. Just can't hide him.
Get to play hard.
Yeah.
It's an interesting stretch in that you go to Philadelphia to play a really, really good Drexel team, and then you come home to play a
really
regional
good
rival. I don't really know how Akron's.
They basically got everybody back, so you're really playing a really good Akron team. So you don't get any breathers now.
Is that one that your squad circles on the calendar now, Akron and Kent State?
Well, they realize these are important games, and we're getting more Cleveland kids now, so this is somewhat of a rival in their mind to them.
Is that because they have Harney and Tree?
Yeah, because they played against these kids in high school, and Kent's got a couple of them now too. So they take that on as a challenge.
Do you excuse me for asking this question. Do you worry that with Akron on the near horizon that maybe they're, I don't want to say they're not focused on Drexel, but maybe they're looking forward a little bit too much?
No. We're game by game, and we make sure they know that this is game by game, and they realize the team they're playing is a tough team, and same as Drexel's probably thinking about us. That's why they're not going to look past us coming into their place. The game against Kentucky put us on the map, so everybody's going to look and see what we really bring to this table, and so they're going to be prepared to play us.
Is your team where you wanted it to be when you were looking at early season? Are things coming together as you forecasted?
We want Charlie back here. In Kentucky, we had Charlie the last 4 minutes. I think we did much better because you got to have the head of what you do that thinks out there for you. You need that out there on the floor, and we're missing that.
does that kind of even out, you know, Drexel playing well against UCLA and Cleveland State playing well against Kentucky, you know, two of the well-known
Well,
historical
their better
programs.
game wasn't UCLA. Their
No,
better
no.
game was Arizona.
Arizona, okay.
And they played well in that game. They had a 19-point lead in the first half on them and let them back in. And then they lose it in the last moments. They're pretty similar. You know,
Yeah.
Arizona is one of the top 4 teams in the country.
Right.
So, I mean, it's pretty similar. It's
Right.
pretty similar.
Right.
The only difference ours and theirs was that was on a neutral court. We played at Kentucky,
Right.
where you don't have any fans.
Right.
You don't have any help.
I mean, Ashley Judd wasn't standing rooting for you, and she was doing all that cheering.
She did say hi at the end of the
She
game.
did?
I said, "Hey, Ashley," she said hi.
We talked a little bit after the last game about Trey's transition to being with Charlie Hurd.
This is great for Trey.
Your lead guard. That was the question.
It's tremendous for Trey because he's getting this experience, and when Charlie comes back, now he can only enhance that. But he's playing pretty well. So when you're playing well and all that's going, I mean, you know, it's going to be some decisions I have to make.
Does it help that Andre is on the scout team? You know,
Every day it helps. I mean, they go at that boy, and that boy go back at us every single day. And it's good. It's helping him, and it's also helping us. It really is. I mean, we got, you know, he and Aaron really gives us some affordable play every day at practice. Because they know they're not playing during the year, and they're letting it all hang out. And they're taking on challenges. It's really helping us. That helped. I tell you, I had a situation like that with Janathan's group because we had 6 guys sitting out that year. Kamchek was sitting out. Pogue was sitting out. Yeah. Pogue was sitting out. Big Joe Lattis was sitting out. I mean, we had a lot of, and every day at practice we just went at it, and it was a good challenge for our guys. You know, I think that really hurts you if you don't have that at practice. We didn't have any of that last year. We only had 9 guys, so I mean, we just threw it out there and hoped it worked. You know, but this, I think, every day they have to come and play, and I think practices is what make you, not games.
When you've got Bryn and Trey and Sebastian on the floor together, what is that? If you were an opposing coach, what kind of problem would that present for you?
Well, you know, the one thing I think, the one thing Trey really brings you and helps you with is defensive. Now you that guard has to play defensively, point guard. So now, and then you have Sebastian out there who's a good defender. And Trey, and Brandon's learning to be a good defender. And so what they do is, by having them both out there, that helps Brent. You know, he doesn't have to really give you as much you need on defense. So, I mean, it really balances us out when you have all 3 of them out there.
I knew you had high expectations for Trey, but is he playing, all things considered, is he playing better than you thought he would at this point?
No, I think this is where I thought he would be. I mean, I don't know where he'd be at this moment, but I thought he would be a contributor to us. Now, the only thing that you don't know is how quickly he's learning the point guard. If he gets that, now you step ahead. Because I thought it'd take this whole year.
Did it take Norris a whole year?
Sure, it took Norris 2 years. I mean, his freshman year, then his sophomore year, I played him at the 2. So he was playing some point, but he really wasn't playing as much. And then there's his junior years when it took him the whole year to figure it out. And then by his senior year, he was ready.
What do they have to? What does a guy like Trey have to figure out?
Well, he's like Norris in that regards. Is that they're 2-guard mentality with a point guard body, and they got to figure it out. They got to use both things. They got to know when to shoot and when to have their guys involved, because if they overshoot, the guys are all pissed at them. So it's a lot of stuff you got to learn. They got to learn how to handle the ball against the pressure, but at the same time get people involved. So it's not a simple process. And for Trey, it's even harder for him because he hadn't played. You take. See, he's using all that he has from high school. He's not using it from any other experience. And Norris at least got the first year, and I mean he was under the gun because that was one of our good teams. Then the second year he had it again. He had some stuff that he could use. Trey doesn't have that. Trey, when he thinks back, well, what did I do in high school? Or is that the move I made in high school? Or
I thought he played a fair amount at Penn State.
Well, no, he played, but he got hurt, so he didn't really get a chance to play. Then he came back to us that first year that he was redshirted. He was hurt half the season. He hurt his something in his back or something. So he only played. I bet you he only played about a month of basketball. He didn't play in the summer. He was hurt before he came to us. Then he played with us and got hurt again. So he only probably played a month. So he still was learning. And then we started up this year, and he's been there the whole time, but it's all a learning process for him.
Where's Anton's game right now?
Well, but let me give you this. Don't let me eliminate this. I thought what helped him was when we went overseas.
The early trip.
Yeah, the early trip gave him a chance to play and do all that. I thought that helped him a great deal.
What do you see with Anton right now?
That's a world within itself. Anton, I want to say he's 80%, but I don't even know half the time because I know that he still struggles with the leg. I think he's trying to fit in with our guys, and they're trying to fit him in as well. So this is an experience for Anton right now. I mean, he's growing through this as well. I think by next year this will be easy for Anton. Right now he's trying to figure out when he's going to get the ball and score and do all this, and at the same time he's trying to deal with the injury. He's playing two positions. He's playing the 4 and the 5. So it's a growing experience as well.
Is he more foul prone now than he was as a freshman, or is that because his mobility's limp?
No, I don't know if it's much. Well, I think a little part of mobility, but I think the rule changes hurt him a little bit. I think changing him from position to position, so he's going against a bigger guy at the 5. And in our first, we played 7 games. I bet you 6 of them have been pretty good teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that hasn't helped the process. He hadn't had. There's no learning in this. I mean, where he can take a break and learn from it. It's all they're coming right at him every game. Also, I thought for him more than any other player, that 3 games in 6 days was not good for him. He needed the break. He needed the rest, and he just couldn't get it.
Has Sebastian? He's had injury problems himself, but it seems like he's really
he
playing.
got hurt before we played our last game, and that really set him back a step because he was playing really aggressive and hard up until that situation. And the positive thing, it wasn't a knee issue; it was a contusion issue, and so he had to get that back. Now, if his legs hadn't been as strong as they were, it probably took another person longer because it was black and blue. And so, with that said, he was able to come back, and I got to give our trainers a lot of credit. They really worked at him hard and got him right, got him well, and they're doing a great job. Our trainers, because our guys have had some bumps and bruises, some nicks, and they're getting them back right.
Sebastian seems to he seems to have a new focus offensively. Is that fair to say, or
what do you mean by that now?
He's scoring the basket more,
he's attacking the basket,
and even a little bit more comfortable on the perimeter shooting the ball.
Well, he's only taking a couple of shots, and that's all I want him to take. A couple out there. He's only taking a couple out there. Well, see, this rule helps Sebastian, and I want him to focus on this rule. I mean, go drive it in there because they're gonna call it, because he's as good as there is going to the basket. what he has to work on, which I'm working on right now, with he got to make free throws. You know, we haven't shot the ball well from the free throw line. We have a couple of guys that have, but we as a team we haven't.
Harris has really, we prefaced earlier talking about how it's taken Anton a while to get back, into where he's perfectly comfortable out there. How important has what Harris has been giving you?
Great. I mean, it has been a tremendous support for us, because it's allowing people like Anton to take time to come back and do it. It's allowing us to play. See, if we didn't have him, we would be playing DeMonte out there, and it's allowing a younger kid to develop even better during this period of time. And he's bringing production. He's not just out there; he's bringing production.
Is he better than you thought he'd be? Because remember, you hadn't. I mean, well, certainly you knew about him. You hadn't seen him play over an extended period of time.
Well, he's not better than I thought he would be, but he's more what I want to say solid. He's he brings us some solidness that I like, that helps us in a great deal, and that his experience also helps. He makes good decisions, and that's because he's solid. And those are the things you need. Now, let's talk on the other end of this. I didn't hit a shot in Kentucky, then we'd be okay, right? But he'll do that as the season progresses, because he's feeling more and more comfortable. That I want him to feel, and the kids are taken to him. I think he's a part of them, which is good. So you got a guy that hasn't been with you all these years, and then all of a sudden he's there. That's not easy to say. All of a sudden we're going to give you part of our shots, part of our all this stuff.
And you would classify him as a leader then?
Yeah, he's got good leadership ability. Very good leadership ability. Is he a leader on this team? I don't know if I would put him that far, because we've got some other guys that have taken that responsibility. But he's, so I think on a team everybody should be a leader to some degree. There's some guys that are going to be the top guys that influence more, but everybody should be showing leadership traits every day, and he does that extremely well, and he helps us because of everybody still being so young. See, that's what they don't realize. We still have a young team, and when we added him, he added some experience to help us. God knew the reason why he sent him to us.
I always like to look at the numbers, the number lines here, to see where you guys are. Are there any numbers on here that with which you are particularly pleased or somewhat displeased at this point?
I'm not pleased with the free throw shooting, because that's one of my fortes. I want them to shoot free throws well, and we're not doing that well. And I think we can add more assists. We're only maybe at assists, and even assist to turnover ratio. Those two things I want us to get better at.
And free throws are a lot bigger this year, aren't they?
Oh man, because you're going in the line a lot, and like I look at Devin. Devin's got to shoot free throws better, because they're gonna foul him a lot, and if they find out he can't shoot, they're gonna even foul him more. So we got to really get better at that. I give Bren credit. He's upheld the tradition, because he's shooting it very well, but. Mm-hmm. But what I like that Bren is also doing is driving it as well as shooting it, because if he does that, now he'll get to the line for us.
Is it a mental thing with Devin? Because it seems like he has decent form, but then when he gets up there, it's just...
Well, I think part mental, and I don't know what the other part is, but it's somewhere. But we got to get him, it's a lot of it is rhythm when you shoot free throws, so... If you haven't been to the free throw line, you have no rhythm, and so he's got to get into the flow of it and shooting it, and we got to get him to the line more.
Have you had many, as a head coach? Have you had many 20-point scorers? I mean, Bren's just underneath there.
Not many. I had. I had one at Kent. That was Trevor.
Did he average 20 for you?
Yeah. And that's last year.
Yeah.
And then I had
Rutgers
See?
didn't you had one?
I had Doobie, he had Rutgers.
Was he a 20 year?
Oh, he was 23er. I mean,
What does it mean as a coach?
No, I had Norris. Norris was a 20.
That's
I had one at every place. So one time I happened to be hit a
Well,
place.
what is it for a coach like you who hangs his hat on defense and is, says that right at the get go? What does it mean when you have a guy who like a Norris, like a Quincy, like a Trevor is, and now apparently Bryn is going to bring that every night?
Oh, that really gives you a zero-in concept where you zero in, you know that these guys are going to produce there. Because when you try to set a game plan, you want to make sure that certain people are producing for you. And you know right there you can write 20 on the board. But we're going to have a 20 this year or close to it primarily because of how many points we average. I mean, we've never averaged. We're 10 points above where we usually average. And that, I think, had something to do with defense as well because, you put more emphasis on that. But the thing I have never changed in my coaching, the freedom on offense. They still have the freedom. And so a person like Bryn, he's going to be able to shoot the ball because he has that freedom. And why do I provide that freedom for him? If I'm going to ask him to make that commitment on the defensive end, I can't come down on him on every end on the offensive end as well. Because now they're not playing basketball, they're looking at me. So they know on the offensive end they're free to play. Now, it's within a structure, which helps. If I just didn't have a structure, it'd be really wild basketball. But because it's a structure and they're free to shoot the ball, they feel freedom.
You mentioned the other three guys, Quincy and Trevor and Norris. What is Bryn unique, or does he remind you of anything he brings to the table that?
Well, he's a lot like Quincy. Quincy put a lot of time in shooting off the court, and Bryn is the same way. I mean, he's dedicated to that aspect. He probably what Bryn has become as well as a shooter is a scorer. If a guy crowds him, he can still put the ball down and create something for himself. And that Quincy had learned that by the end of that. Norris wasn't a shooter. Norris could shoot, but he wasn't a shooter. I mean, that wasn't his forte. Meaning, Bryn is close to being a pure shooter, whereas Quincy was a pure shooter. I mean, he still holds the Big East record for consecutive threes in a row. He hit 8 in a row in the game against Syracuse. So Quincy was a pure shooter, whereas Bryn is getting close to that. And I think one of the reasons it helps him get close to that is putting in the extra time. Trevor was a scorer. Trevor could score wherever you put him at, he's going to score. And he'll hit big shots. That's what I loved about Trevor. So those were all, they had some similarities, but they were different to some degree. Trevor was a better ball handler than all the others. Even probably he and Norris were pretty close. Norris was a great defender. Trevor was a good defender. Quincy didn't know what defense looked like. But he learned. He got better. And Bryn was in his same class. So he's getting better.
Bryn plays with a certain flair. He's demonstrative, not in a hugely expansive way, but when he makes shots, he gives you that very concentrated like that.
Well, he takes joy in hitting shots and scoring. He enjoys making baskets. It's probably the opposite on the defensive end. He don't enjoy that as much, but he enjoys that offensive end. So I gotta embrace that with him. I never really harnessed that from him because I know this is who he is, and he enjoys this part of the game.
Is he still getting better? Is he?
Oh, he's getting much better.
On his arc, where is he on?
Well, if you're talking about on a scale going upward,
what's versus what he'll be next year after that. Where is he? Where is he versus where he was last year?
Oh, he's light years ahead of where he was last year. Last year, he didn't know what he was doing. He was just doing it. This year, he's starting to figure out what he's doing. Next year, I think he'll know what he's doing, and he'll look for that. he doesn't understand yet about when people are shutting him down. That's going to take a little while because he's still struggling with that.
Did they shut him down in the second half?
They went at him specifically.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I got to help him with that, not in regards to communication with him and teaching him. I gotta provide situations for him so he can get open. I gotta help him more with that because we did a little bit of that even this week because I know they're gonna try to shut him down and I gotta get him. And with the rule change, I can get him curling and getting in there and creating and getting fouled. Because see, the thing is he's a dead-eye free throw shooter. That tells you how pure a kid is. And he's a dead-eye free throw shooter. So if I can get him, see, just having him shoot jump shots all the time, if he doesn't make them, then we don't shoot very well. Okay? But, you know, and a good three-point shooter is only shooting 45, 46%. So what I'm telling you, if we can get him to the line more, he can really help us. Now they're going to try to prevent that, you know, and I think we'll probably see more zones in the near future. You know, the only game we have struggled offensively, I felt, was the zone against Eastern Michigan. The zone against San Francisco didn't faze us, and Dallas, or Texas Arlington, but the Eastern Michigan zone fazed us because they were so big. I mean, their wings are 6'7", 6'6", and the post guy's 7 foot inside, and then you got a 6'8" forward. So you had big bodies. So when you had to shoot, and that's what happens at the higher major level. You know, Kentucky had big bodies, but they didn't play zone. So you know, we could go inside of them and do things.
Was the Eastern game just one of those nights for Trey? He was like 4 of 21, or
yeah. Well, that size I think affected him. And when we give you all honesty, they didn't listen in that game. If they would have driven the ball to the basket more, we would have been better against them down the stretch, because you know they were shooting it so free. You know, and you see that something for something. If he would have took half of those off and took it to the basket, because he shot free throws well that game, and that's a training process. I got to keep these guys understanding that, because we have jump shooters, we don't have drivers. John Harris is a jump shooter. Trey is more of a jump shooter. Brent is a jump shooter. Charlie's a jump shooter. We don't have drivers. Now we shoot the ball well because we're jump shooters. Now we got to get them to understand that they got to take this ball to the basket, primarily because of the rule change.
Yes, it's